No one is coming to give you permission to be happy. As women, we spend much of our lives caring for everyone else that we often forget to care for ourselves. Somewhere along the way, many of us stop creating, stop dreaming, and start believing that putting ourselves first is selfish. But what if reclaiming your joy isn't selfish at all? What if it's one of the greatest acts of self-love you can choose? That's exactly what we're talking about today. You won't want to miss this episode of the Menopause Mindshift Self-Love Podcast. So tune in and join me for this exciting episode. Hello, and welcome to the Menopause Mindshift Self-Love Podcast, where we are inspiring women in menopause to unleash their inner queen, write their own story, and define their own menopause journey. I am your host, the Menopause Queen, Lisa R. Triggs, certified menopause coach, certified neuroscience coach, motivational speaker, and best-selling author of The Menopause Mindshift, How I Unleashed My Inner Queen, and you can too. This is a space for real, honest conversations about menopause, because menopause isn't just about hormones. It's neurological, it's emotional, and it's deeply personal. After 20 years of navigating menopause, I've learned that what most women are missing isn't more information, it's a different way of seeing themselves. And in this podcast, we talk about what's really happening in your body, your brain, and the tools that support you in feeling better. You'll hear from inspiring guests, as well as the insights and perspective shifts that changed everything for me. Because self-love in menopause isn't a luxury. It's the foundation. So if you are ready to think differently about menopause, reconnect with yourself, and define your own journey, you are in the right place. My lovely guest today is Kenya E. Aissa, a former social worker, wellness entrepreneur, author, and the founder of Ruby Envy Wellness. She's the creator of Escape to Create, a yoga and art retreat experience that helps women reconnect with their creativity through movement, mindfulness, and self-expression. Kenya encourages women to stop waiting for permission, prioritize their own happiness and mental wellness, and rediscover the joy, passion, and creativity that may have been set aside while caring for everyone else. Welcome, Kenya. I'm so excited. So, Kenya, tell us who you are and who you serve. What do you do?
Well, my name's Kenya Aissa. I am the owner of Ruby Envy Wellness LLC, which is a wellness company. And I am also an author. My first book was Sacred Girls, Spiritual Life Skills for Conscious Young Women. My book that is soon to come out is called Independent Wife, Reclaiming Your Power, Passion, and Pleasure. And kind of newest launch that just happened last week of my business is I'm a yoga teacher. I'm a 500-hour trauma-informed yoga teacher. And I've been doing that for, I think, 9 years. And my latest venture is running yoga and art retreats and workshops for women who want to reclaim their inner artist.
I think that's exciting.
Thank you. I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, that sounds intriguing, actually. As I was reading that in your bio info, I was like, I should go to that.
Please do. I would love that. I would love that. Also, love it here. I love Berkeley, California, which is my hometown. And there are some beautiful spaces for just one-day workshops in my own town. So I want them to actually be everywhere. I want to have some in Australia where I have family, Mexico, Costa Rica, and France is kind of really, I love France. So
On my list of places to go, haven't been there yet, so definitely want to go there.
yeah.
So tell me how you got started with your Ruby Envy Wellness business.
Sure. Excuse me. So many years ago, so I'm a makeup artist. Also, I'm an award-winning makeup artist here in the Bay Area. And I started my business back in about 2000, the year 2000, where it was Ruby Envy Beauty. So I was doing a lot of fashion editorials and fashion shows, et cetera, et cetera. So very much fashion. And as I evolved and did more work with clients when it comes to kind of the trauma piece, it just expanded. And then, of course, I became a yoga teacher and it expanded into Ruby Envy Wellness.
I see. Because you're a former
Social worker.
social worker. Sorry,
Yeah.
it's keeping
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So you retired from social work and then went into Ruby Envy Wellness. Now, what does Ruby Envy stand for? What is
What
this
a fun
supposed to
question.
imply?
Hey, that's such an interesting question. So I have to admit that when I first started Ruby Envy, started off Ruby Envy, then went to Ruby Envy Beauty, I came up with it and I asked my friend Holly, I'm like, what do you think of the name Ruby Envy? Now, this was 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, actually. And she said, oh, I like it. And so Ruby is my grandmother. And so I named my business Ruby Envy because I was always making jokes that I envied her eyebrows. She was in the beauty business. And so
Okay.
she owned her own hair salon. She was a hairstylist. She ran a salon underneath her home in the basement of her
Wow.
home. And so she was really the first entrepreneur that I ever met. And so I always joked that I had Ruby Envy because her eyebrows were so perfect. And that is
Okay.
where I got the name from.
Interesting. I thought it was something totally different because I know you do vagina yoga. So,
Yes, I do.
oh, yes. So I thought the ruby was the vagina. That's what I
Oh,
associated it in.
that's
Ruby
a thought.
envy. Like,
Okay.
yeah, like envy
Yes.
your vagina kind of thing. So I'm so curious about, I don't know how much of it you do or anything like
Yeah.
that about this
Yes.
vagina yoga. Please tell us about it.
Yes. Okay. So the short version of that is the acronym is PYWK, the last ones being with Kenya. And so I have been studying the pelvic floor, pelvic health, vag health. I've been studying that as sexual health for a long time. And through one of the teachers that I worked with, who was a pelvic floor therapist, I learned that I can't remember what the time period was, but there was some kind of old time period where the bodies of nuns, like way up in the Himalayas or something, I'm totally making that up, but some far away place had been examined and their inner workings had been completely degraded from lack of attention. And so, not just sexual attention, because obviously nuns are not doing that as far as we know.
They're
Not
not
supposed to do
supposed to
that.
be anyway.
Not supposed to be doing that. But that was the issue. And so I was really fascinated by that. I was like, wow, nothing is happening and we're not treating it. If you're not a person who is involved in a sexual relationship, you may just be ignoring the JJ. You might just be
Yeah.
ignoring it. And in my classes that I teach, one of the things I always say, if you're new to my class or if I'm teaching starting a new group, is I say, it's not your appendix. You have to pay attention to it. You can't ignore it your entire life like we do our appendix. And there are muscles and fluids and things in there that have to be moved around so that we do not experience things like pelvic prolapse or
Yeah.
vaginal dryness or whatever. It's like we need to take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the reason I wanted to know more about it because that's
Yeah.
exactly, I was thinking women in midlife, pelvic floor starts to change and
Yes.
prolapse. Like,
Yes.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yep.
I thought that was just me for some reason, knowing my own body well enough in that way. And then when I did discover it was actually prolapse, and it was something I've had for a number of years
Mm.
as it, it kind of showed up. So
It's not just
then, yeah,
you.
with that little bit.
It's not just you. Let me interrupt you because that is an education problem. It's an
Hmm.
education in this country. And when I was struggling with fertility back when my husband and I were trying to get pregnant, it was so interesting because I went to an all girl high school and I went to an all women's college. And in the sexual education portion of my college experience, I learned more about the penis than I did about the vagina and the vulva
Wow.
and the reproductive system. I know things about words, terminology, about penile anatomy that my husband doesn't even know. He's like, "What's that?" I can tell you all about the vas deferens. Okay, I can tell you all about it.
Isn't
Yes,
that a
that's what I
shame?
mean. It's not our fault. Once we know, then it's on us to learn more about our bodies. But I was struggling with fertility, and there were things about fertility and how my own reproductive system worked that I knew nothing about. It was amazing and incredibly horrible. We should know
Hmm.
more, especially when you come up in an all girls schools. Like,
You would think they would be focusing on it, and that is so interesting. There was no sex education classes when I was growing up here. So I think it's so important what you're doing with
thank you.
the pelvic floor, because one of the reasons to do these exercises and keep that health going is so that we are functioning properly, so that we don't have this happening. And for anybody listening who doesn't know what prolapse is, it's when the wall of your vagina kind of caves in basically and can sag and kind of start coming out. And for some women, it can be very severe and you might need surgery. So
Exactly.
there's more to our pelvic floor, I think, than just doing Kegels.
Exactly. That's so true. And so people sometimes ask me that question. I'm glad you brought that up because they're like, "Oh, well, I do Kegels."
I do my
And
Kegels. Yeah.
yeah, and once I very often I'll say, "Okay, how often are you doing those and what does that entail for you?" And for most people that I speak to, they are doing them not exactly in a way that's helping them, and
Yeah.
also definitely not enough. And then there are other women who have the exact opposite problem where they have way too much tightness. And
Okay.
often that's from trauma, which is my specialty. And
Okay.
so there will be some sort of trauma, and it doesn't even have to be physical trauma or sexual assault or anything like that. I've had a
Just
few
tighten up.
students. Yeah, I've had a few students that have had traumatic experiences that have made them be much more tight, too tight, causing all kinds of problems, like sexual problems, but just physical problems, even problems with their stomach or their problems with elimination. So it's just really important to be mindful that this is an area of our body that should not be ignored because we've been trained as women and as men to think, well, this is for sex and procreation. It's for making babies and having sex. And
Yeah.
there are so
Well,
many
having
other.
sex to make the babies, having sex to make the
Exactly. 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 And then older women who are like, well, that's way past me. I don't have to even think about it. But then they will end up having bladder infections and all kinds of things, sepsis. I mean, it's just really sad that we don't have an education system that includes that along with things like the food pyramid and stuff that I grew up with.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, which turns out to be all marketing, the whole
Yes.
make sure you eat your
Yes.
dairy and all that, but that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah. Yes, because growing up in the '70s, that's what it was all about. Yeah.
I feel glad though to have grown up in the generation we have and to be here now. Could you imagine being back in the early 1900s or 1800s. Well, first of all, there wasn't indoor plumbing, but back then when women were property still and you
Yes.
were basically having sex to have your babies, and people died during childbirth and by the time they were 40. So I
Yes,
feel very blessed to be able to have been born and live in the time that we have, and even have my
absolutely.
children in this information generation. So
Absolutely.
I'm really glad about that. Tell me more about how your second book came about.
Conversation just kind of off the cuff with one of my yoga clients. And she was, it just, this was the impetus for it. And then it snowballed down the hill. But we were having a conversation. She has a special needs child, and she was just telling me of some of the struggles that she's dealing with. And I said, oh, well, you should ask your husband to help you out with some of these tasks that you have to do when it comes to your son. And she paused for a second. And then she just looked at me and she goes, I don't like him. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I've never heard anybody just come out and say that before. And
Because
so,
normally, if you don't, you'll go your separate ways, or maybe some people, I guess, don't for other reasons. Yeah.
yeah. So she was raised, as I got into it with her, she was raised, she's like, her father's American, her mom was an immigrant, and she was raised very much, and this is in my book. I actually tell her story in my book. She was raised very much to just stay in the relationship, and that it's not about you, it's about family. And how does this relationship benefit and boost your family, your children that you're making with this man, etc. And so it just kind of started other conversations because I am a very curious person. And as a social worker, and I have my master's degree in psychology, my bachelor's degree in psychology, I was a counselor for many years. I am used to getting into people's business. And so, because behavioral science is my thing, it is what I live for, it's what drives me, hearing about other people and how they're living their lives and what drives them. And so
Hmm.
I just started having conversations with women about how they are experiencing their marriage and the upsides are and what they might consider to be some of the downsides. And then I told somebody that I know that I was really curious about this. And she said, well, let's gather a whole bunch of women together and have a conversation about it. And I was like, this is awesome. And so in a room full of women I didn't even know, we started having these conversations. I was asking all of them about their marriages, and some of those women are now divorced or married to other people, or because this was might have been 2018 or something like that. So it was a
Okay.
while ago. Yeah. So then after that, I just started asking women if I could interview them. Just some women that I knew, some women that I didn't know or had just met. And then even when I finally finished interviewing women, I would talk about it. Like, even I went to my 40th high school reunion. And I was telling one of the girls there who I hadn't seen since high school, I was like, this is, and she is going through, she had just, I can't remember if she'd just gotten divorced or if she was going through a divorce, but she was like, you should have talked to me. So, like, there- a lot of women have things to say, whether it is being not kind of like what my retreats are based on. You're taking care of your family, you're taking care of your children, you're taking care of your husband's needs, whatever, and we're trained to give. We're trained to give, and we are not trained to receive as women. And we're raised to believe that is our role, is to be givers and to give and give and give, which is a beautiful thing. It's a good thing to serve. It's a good thing to serve the people that you love. It's a good thing to serve your community and your society. But then also,
We shouldn't be
nobody
subordinate.
100%. And also, people don't often ask us what we need. What is it that we need to be happy? And I've always said one of my pet peeves when it comes to male female relationships, because my book is not just for male female relationships. I'm like, this can be for female female relationships. The book is all about women. So whatever relationship you're in, I'm talking about you and your needs. And one of my pet peeves has always been when it comes to men specifically, they will often give you what they think you need and not what you need. And because they're often not raised to come to you and say, what is it that you need?
Mhm.
What's are you okay? And we don't get enough of that. And so there's a lot going on there. And it
I
was
think in
interesting to delve
communication
into.
too, because we
Yeah.
as women, because of that subordinate feeling sometimes, although I do see it changing. It's not in every case. There's some cases where I've known people where the woman has a better paying job than the husband does.
Oh, yeah.
So
Sure.
dad was Mr. Mom, and that
Yep.
kind of thing. I do know a
Yep.
few people like that.
Yeah.
But we as women sometimes have a hard time communicating our needs as well
Mhm.
on the relationship and the partner that we're in. So
Mm.
my hope would be that you're always with somebody that you can communicate with and be able to express your needs and desires to.
Mhm.
But
That
not
would
all
be
women have
great.
that. Yeah. In a perfect world.
In a perfect world. And I think that I went into the whole process very ignorant to the fact that so many women do not have that.
Yeah.
And if they try to have that, they are met with, I'm the man here.
Yeah.
I make the decision.
You said something really important, and that was that your body. And so many of us don't. So, girlies out there listening, dare I even say it, explore your own body if you have to. Get to know it and go to the doctor and do your research and naturopath, regular doctor, whatever you need to do your yoga. I mean, keeping limber and active, like working out, I'm constantly stretching and that because I have scoliosis. So I know stretching, I go to the chiropractor, I get regular massages. That's all part of my body health. And I was pretty impressed with myself. I'm like 58 and I can fold over like a pretzel. My boobs are touching my knees. So how many of y'all can say that? We'll have all the contact info for Kenya for anybody listening today that wants to be able to check her out, connect with her, and purchase her books. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a lovely conversation. I'm sad that it has to end. So if you want to have a healthy vajayjay, you got to do yoga with Kenya. We are here for you and your vagina. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone listening today. And as always, please remember, choose yourself first and choose self-love first. Thank you and bye for now. All right.